those of you that are on the call that know me know that I am an avid runner, and that might be one of my greatest weaknesses in that I will get up at 2:30 in the morning and get out and run for about an hour or so almost every day, regardless of the city I'm in. But it allows me to sort of flush my mind after about 30 minutes out there. It's dark. It's not like you can see a whole lot. And recently I've been thinking as I'm running along about what really is the definition of Agile. Is it a philosophy? Is it a set of methods, a set of tasks? Is it some rough feeling of actually feeling better about what we do? Is it just going faster and delivering more?
I'm sorry, pardon the interruption. This is the operator. I do have a participant that would like to connect to the call, but he's being prompted for security.
Sorry, this is the director. The security codes are listed in the confirmation email. Please don't interrupt the webinar. We have a live webinar going on. We're recording it. Thank you very much.
Pardon me.
Super. So trying to get a handle on what Agile is part of, I think, what we're wrestling with when we start to talk about Agile estimation using functional metrics. And unfortunately, at the same time, all of those words have a lot of different connotations. The term Agile has just all sorts of connotations. As I went through and thought about what the definition is, a radical rebuild of all methods is really what's going on in terms of how most organizations are doing work today. And we're to a point where just pure Agile is beginning to mature with practices of other methodologies being integrated in, being incorporated, such that you can end up with a wide range, a wide palette of practices and that are called Agile, and some of them being extremely light versus some being more disciplined. So finding that central core and understanding that the philosophy of sustainability and people first are probably the more important components that actually define what Agile is, rather than just a rote adherence to any single named methodology. This presentation using functional metrics incorporates a path that takes pieces of other kinds of methodologies that haven't been experienced within Agile directly, have been found in other places, and puts them together. So the practice of robust software sizing is integrated into this in a fashion that I think adds to a more robust, disciplined version of Agile versus a different form of Agile. So I think we have to first start by wrestling with the term estimation, planning, and budgeting, and all of those kinds of things when one is doing a project sort of raise their ugly head. And first, I'd like to actually challenge you to, challenge your preconceived notion of what estimation is, and consider the difference between those three things: estimation, budgeting, estimation, and planning. There are three basic concepts. We all do those things, and sometimes people think of them as synonymous. However, each has a different output. Each has different uses, different tools, different techniques. Heck, maybe they are related, but they most certainly are not the same. So, in essence, budgeting defines how much we have to spend. It happens typically way at the beginning of a project, perhaps before a single task has been started. It tends to ignore what I will call the cone of uncertainty. Not the cone of silence from Get Smart, but the cone of uncertainty. Estimation, then, is really all about how big something is, how much effort in rough pieces, It is focused on what I'll call the cone of uncertainty and explain in a few slides from now. Whereas planning is the definition of task, allocation of resources. It is the day-to-day operation of how things get started. So let's start with a little bit a deeper understanding of those basic components of estimation. And we're going to ignore budgeting, mainly because I think that's more a bastion of guesses than it is of any sort of robust estimation process or even robust planning process, all of which are really focused on trying to understand how much time, how much effort, and get to a point where there can be some very succinct conversation about what those things are. So let's start with the basic inputs of estimation. So if you were wrestling with estimation, it has several parts, and it's typically viewed by many people as mostly an art or perhaps magic. I would like to suggest that it is part magic, it is part art, but it also is part science. The magic part really is in the transformation portion. The science part is in wrestling with the inputs, things like sized requirements, things like understanding the approximate skill set of your organization, what you're good at, what you're not good at, whether or not your organization is stress for people, not stress for people. And these may sound like we're diving into the individual allocation of tasks, but this is at a more macro level. And what sort of tools, techniques, equipment that we have to ply against this. Those define at the very least a productivity signature that can be then applied. And there are a number of other terms for that, but a productivity signature in essence says how much work can be done dependent on other kinds of things. Whether we do that in a Delphic nature or we use a parametric approximation of that, we'll wrestle with as we go through this presentation. But we're all doing that, even if we're doing that in a Delphic nature where we're just having discussions between people. The output of estimation is not merely, but is cost and effort. Because you're not allocating resource, it's very difficult to wrestle with things like how long it's going to take. We all know that all projects change size, so therefore we may or may not have incorporated things like scope creep, and that's why when we do sprints and we do planning games and things like that, we all know that additional stories are added. Scope creep happens. No project stays the same size from the beginning, but we can start with an understanding of how big we think it is. All of those things, obviously, when you get down to a micro level, are leveraged in planning. That's when things like individual sprint backlogs get created, schedules if you're going down the schedule route, where you're actually allocating resource or accepting and committing to work within a team. So let's touch on a basic estimation model, and it's